When I was at Boston Consulting Group, we used to have a criterion on the candidate evaluation form, which was tolerance for ambiguity. And what makes a good consultant is somebody that can really be comfortable with, well, that's like hard to say, this or that or the other. And so I always had a good tolerance for ambiguity. And I'd say uncertainty is related to that. So it used to be uncertainty would make me maybe anxious and paralyze me from moving forward. And now uncertainty I see is a good thing because I can grab onto it and have a vision. It could just look a little bit further ahead than the typical person. And that uncertainty that's out there in general can actually translate into more decisive action on my part. So when I see uncertainty, it means the path isn't obvious. And if I can look ahead a bit, then I can get a jump on the competition. So I embrace uncertainty.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo, and my guest here today is David Williams, who is the CEO at Atumcell. David, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Me too.
Why don't we start off, David, with you just telling everyone a little bit more about Atumcell, who you guys are, what you're all about, and who you help.
Sounds good. Well, Atumcell is a cybersecurity company, and we work mostly with private equity firms in the middle market and their portfolio companies. And we have a variety of software and services to help them stay safe, ranging from penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, and helping private equity firms look at their cybersecurity posture of their entire portfolio.
Good stuff. And when we were first having our conversation, you were telling me a little bit some very, very cool things about what you guys do that is different from a lot of these cybersecurity companies. So I love if you're able to dive into a little bit more of those as well, and how you guys are differing from the cybersecurity services or products that you guys are providing for your customers.
Sounds good. Well, we call what we do the hacker's perspective, which means that we think like an actual attacker. And that is in contrast with the typical approach, which is to think more as a kind of a compliance person. So in compliance, you go through a checklist and you say, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And that works well in compliance situations, like when the FDA comes to inspect your plant, they're only going to look at those things. But a hacker don't have that type of scope. And if they could go by hacking your fish tank, as some have done to a casino in Macau, they're going to do that. If they can come through the side door or the roof or the chimney, they may do that. So to be specific, a big issue these days is spoofable domains, because that leads to phishing. And so we have a tool. It's actually at atumcell.com/spoofcheck, where you can go and see if your domain is susceptible to phishing, because if it could be spoofed. And in our research, about 55% of middle market private equity firms and portfolio companies have spoofable domains. Typical vulnerability scan or penetration test doesn't look at that, but we do.
And anyone can just go to the website atumcell.com/spoof
check. Yeah, and just put in your domain or put in anybody's domain, and you'll see that there's some famous names that are spoofable, including IBM. I checked recently. So,
well, there you go. So some of the things that are very important to keep in mind of, and I find cybersecurity so interesting because as someone who, and I would love to dig into as well, what made you even want to start and run Atumcell, all those things. So we'll get into that. But I find cybersecurity so interesting because everybody knows it's so important, but I would say ignorantly that the majority of people don't really care for it. They don't actively look to improve or keep their things in check. So it's one of the things that I find so important, and it's great to have a conversation with you about this. I think I mentioned to you, I also had another gentleman that also has a cybersecurity company before, because I think it's so important. And having these little bits and pieces and nuggets of information that are so valuable can, I guess, put it into a larger perspective of how important these things truly are. Because if companies like IBM aren't taking care of it, like you better start taking care of that as well. Because anyways, that's part of it. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, it's even, I can see you're having a difficulty formulating the question, and that's the nature of it, right? So on the one hand, you'd like to say, what you don't know can't hurt you. But in cybersecurity, we know that's not the case. The hackers are out there and they have powerful tools they're scanning, and they may go after you. And you might not have heard about it because people don't tend to publicize it, but a lot of companies get hit with cyber attacks. Now, there's also sometimes the feeling that, like, this is so crazy, I can't never understand this, and so there's nothing that I can do about it. And that's not true either. There's a lot of basic hygiene that can be done, and a lot of value just taking a few steps to get better. And a lot of companies are just very exposed, and there's things you can do to improve. We call it also defense in depth. So there's some things just like being aware of phishing, for example, that can help you. But then if you're aware of phishing and your domain is protected from spoofing, and if your computer is set up in such a way that if you click a link that it's not actually going to compromise the whole company, and if your passwords aren't out on the web, then you're okay. So there's a bunch of things that you can do. You don't have to be perfect, and it is actually, we call it a cybersecurity maturity journey. So it's not just boom, you're safe and somebody isn't. It's something you need to continue with, but you can make progress. The one other thing about it is that it's a different type of a discipline. You're normally thinking about in a company, if you're running a company, how do I build this? How do I get people to do this? How do I make my product better? How do I collect from the customers faster? How do I market? And you don't think, what if somebody could break into my HVAC system and reprogram the thermostat, use it to get into my database? It's just a different way of thinking that is not the norm. You don't expect that of an executive. And so that's why people struggle with it.
Oh, that's interesting. And talk to me a little bit more about what made you want to decide to pursue this path as well. We had a brief conversation where you were in I guess a completely different avenue, and now you're here.
I've always had somewhat of an interest in cybersecurity, even before they called it that. So back in the day, in the 80s, when I was in high school, I actually did some hacking, including some used to hack phone systems before you could hack computers. And I had a computer programming job at a VA hospital in Washington, D.C. And I inadvertently actually brought the computer down, which was a PDP-11, which is what they used to call mini computers. So all the guys from the basement came rushing up to see, what are you doing? So I always had some kind of an interest in it. So it's just, I like the technology. I like the problem solving. My background is in healthcare and technology. And during the pandemic, as we can discuss, I got into cybersecurity as well, seeing it was such a weakness.
And let's discuss that right now. Let's dig into it. What were some of the things that were coming to mind you're starting to notice? Because as everyone was at home, then I'm assuming that everything just skyrocketed.
That's fair. So what happened was, it was mid 2020, and I got an email from somebody in Europe and said, "Hey, we're cybersecurity researchers. We scan the entire web, and the most vulnerable organizations in the world are U.S. hospitals. And you work for hospitals, so we should go into business together because we have a way to stop ransomware." So it turned out that the diagnosis was exactly right. Hospitals got clobbered with ransomware. But I said, you're right about that, but hospitals they're not the best customers. They have a lot of other issues. They don't have that much money. And so let's not do that. Let's actually look at who does have funding, and it's more in private equity investors in those portfolio companies. So it came in from a healthcare and a technology angle, which I'm used to, but it was in a different realm of cybersecurity.
Great. I love to hear that. It's always nice to see how there's always opportunities everywhere if you look for them, if you're willing to actually grab them, but also not just take it as it is, like, hey, take it, analyze it. What can I do to make it even better? Which is what you did, and what you're doing now, which is always awesome as well. The final thing that I wanted to ask about you in this entire spoofing space here is someone they go to the website, they find that their domain is very spoofable. What then? What are the best next steps for them to take?
So we have it set out that it will not just tell you, yes, good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent. It will actually say what the issues are. And so email is insecure, and the web is insecure kind of by design. Nobody thought about hackers when they set up the web. It was for people to collaborate. But so there are these frameworks. There's what's called SPF and DMARC, and those are ways to set up your domain to make it safer. And we have specific things that it tells you what's wrong, and it recommends how to fix it. So what you should do is go, if you're an executive or anybody technical, and go and plug the domain in. It'll give you the information what's wrong, and it'll tell you what to do with it. If you're technical, that's all you'll need. You can fix it. If you're not technical, then bring this to your technical person and ask them to review it and to work on it. Now, one reason that this tool is powerful and other things like this are that an executive might be concerned about cybersecurity. And so maybe a consultant will tell them, hey, you should check if your domain is spoofable, as an example. And then they'll go and talk to the head of IT, and they'll say, it isn't, blah, 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 blah. And they'll just blow smoke or then the executive will feel like, I was being foolish. I didn't know. I'm never going to go and ask anything again.
Hmm.
So what we try to do is to translate all the way from the executive or owner level to the specific individual who's working on the technology. If I'm on the tech side and somebody brings me something, most of the time it is nonsense. So that's why they say, that's nonsense. But here we bring something and no, actually look at it and it's good and it makes sense. So we're friends with both the top level execs and people all the way down in the basement working on the on the technology.
Yeah. So instead of just taking it in information, brushing it off, it's like, yeah, we'll be okay. It's like, no, actually, here are the very easy, seamless steps for you to take. Not only you, but also your team internally to take to
Yeah,
make sure that you're good to go.
that's right. And they're not always easy steps, but they're fairly straightforward if you're technical. And also, what we're doing is going beyond. Most companies have the SPF and DMARC set up,
Mhm.
but there are these advanced hacking approaches like SPF bypass that if the SPF is set up in a certain way or the DMARC, then you can actually go and spoof the domain anyway.
Mhm.
And so these are constantly evolving. So even a company that may have an awareness, this could take them to the next level.
Got it. So it goes back to what you were saying before, where it's this constant, not like a constant where you have to like be doing this thing every single day. Maybe it's good to check every single day, but it's this constant improvement internally, but also this health check internally to make sure things are good to go. In 6 months, things might change. Check it in, make sure we're good to go, update it, and just always keep an eye on it.
Well, it's because this is different from, let's say, with a car, you're having your oil change, you do the maintenance, keep the tires. Nobody's trying to, well, in general, people aren't going and trying to attack your car all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so, but in the equivalent here is you've got a piece of software, let's say Microsoft Word, you're using it. Every day, hackers are probing it to figure out how they can attack it. And so, even if it was secure yesterday, it might not be secure tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you need to be able to, keep up with the attackers.
Very, very cool. I love to learn more about things like this. Of course, it's one of those like I said, it's just one of those topics where everybody knows is important, but I think there's a huge lack of expertise from the majority of the population that actually dives deeper into it. And I would love to shift the conversation a little bit more, David, on the business itself now. How long has Atumcell been a thing now?
So I first met my co-founder back, during the pandemic, and we really started the company in the U.S. just a couple of years ago. So it's about 2 years old.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit more now then, as you guys were growing the company and getting things going during the pandemic and in the early stages. How were those, or what were some of the challenges then, and how are they different from the challenges that you currently face now in the business where it's at?
Yeah, so a lot of what we were working on is that my co-founder's name Matthew has
Hmm.
a lot of tools, many many tools that he developed over the years, and so we could use those, and he was using them for himself. And we were trying to figure out is which of these things are actually going to be important now on the defense side, because he's been
Hmm.
more on the attacking side, ethical hacker. And so for the first year or so, we're trying to understand what's going to be of interest, what are people going to want to do now, and we focused on services. Now, what we've done is started to transform some of these tools into software that could be used typically by like a managed service provider or by the private equity firm itself, the IT leader there. And so now we're getting into the challenge of, how do you scale up a software company? How do you do the
Hmm.
development and have it be used by non-experts as opposed to tools that are in the hands of experts or services? So that's what we're focused on now, the software
Mm.
licensing side of things.
Interesting. And is that more now that side of things where it's the conversations to have with possible customers, like really educating them on the process and how it's going to deliver them that value? Or is it still more of that internal side of things as how do we frame this internally so that it does have the best message when it gets out there?
No, it's more, I think, about understanding the users. There's a lot of companies out there that have much bigger, marketing budgets. Their brand names are better known, and so on. And there's so many different cybersecurity companies and software tools that are out there that you're really wandering into something that's like, wow, this seems like it's really saturated.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we do things that are unique and are uniquely better. So it's more
Mhm.
of a matter of how do we um, identify what the opportunity is with a given customer, prospective customer, and
Mhm.
get them to fit what we're doing into, the rest of their the rest of their approach. So that's kind of the
Hmm.
challenge that we face. And also on the products themselves, there's a lot of people that are technical and knowledgeable in IT, but
Yeah.
just because they know IT doesn't mean they understand cybersecurity. Because as I was saying before, it's a very different mentality.
Hmm.
And so making our tools simple enough, intuitive enough that an IT person could use it
Hmm.
is a challenge that we're overcoming. So that's kind of the main thing, but without losing the power of what they can do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you get the experience that you've had from other paths from what you used to do in health tech and in the healthcare space to apply it to the business now and how you're looking to evolve it and keep growing it?
A lot of this has to do with really understanding the end customer and what their business needs are and what their workflow is like, and also how to make them look good and productive in their job as opposed to, um, to look foolish or like they screwed up or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I have a lot of experience in change management
Hmm.
and in we call it in consulting, sometimes we call it the self-discovered logic. So instead of
Okay.
like ramming some concept down your throat, we get to say, huh, this is my idea. And we say, yes, that's terrific. So a lot of my experience working with executives who are leading companies that have advanced technologies comes into play here
Hmm.
as well.
So it's really just trying to get them to figure it out on their own by asking the right questions. Is that right?
Yeah, and get them to figure out where to place us. So, for example,
Hmm.
cyber is something that people don't want to talk about as because
Hmm.
it's sort of like, you got ripped off or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's increasingly becoming strategically important. So we're saying
Hmm.
it's not just to prevent loss. There are some true financial benefits to it. Not only maybe your insurance premium will be
Hmm.
lower, but also you're going to be able to work with more sophisticated customers. So
Hmm.
now we have a lot of companies that are mid-sized, and as they grow, they need to work with larger enterprise customers. Those
Yeah.
customers are going to be more demanding about their own supply chain and their focus on cybersecurity. So now we say your investment in cybersecurity keeps you from being hacked, but it also enables you to work with these larger enterprise customers. And
Hmm.
so when an executive who's in a decision making role with a budget can start to get that message, internalize it, and apply it to their own business, then
Hmm.
that's successful for them and for us.
Gotcha. Do you find that there's a lot of hesitancy from companies to have this conversation because of, and the reason why I say this is because I'll use LastPass as an example
Yeah.
because LastPass is a huge company where so many people use it, but there are oftentimes breaches, and of
Yeah.
course, it's not ideal, not right for a cybersecurity company, as opposed to a company like 1Password where there's never been a breach and things like that. The reason why I use that as an example is because for companies that are looking to improve their cybersecurity solutions, if they are aware of things like LastPass and the breaches that happen, there might be some obstacles or hesitancy in their mind of like, okay, I don't know if I'm open or willing to try a new solution based on this experience here. But for the ones that aren't even aware that that is a thing that has happened before, not only with LastPass but many other companies as well, then maybe it's a smoother sailing process. How do you find that dynamic to be?
I mean, when I remember when I was growing up and there was an ad on the radio for Sims clothing, and it said, and at Sims, that educated consumer is our best customer. So somebody that actually has already understands what the value is, what they want, what they don't want, in a way, they can be the best.
Mm-hmm.
So we do well actually with an educated customer that's already been through a lot. Having said that, cyber is a weird area. And the difference, if you look at cybersecurity software, the difference between the software that's used by hackers and that's used by defenders is often not that different. And in fact, sometimes the hackers use tools that are actually designed for the defenders. So
Okay.
it's kind of a fine, it's kind of a fine line there, and it is confusing, and it does make things a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's okay. One of the things that we try to do is to be able to demonstrate with a hacker's perspective, what is a hacker already seeing about you? Like the tools that we have, guess what? The Russians and the North Koreans, and the Iranians have these tools as well. The difference is we tell you what the tools say, whereas they use them to exploit you. And so don't try the ignorance is bliss approach, and instead we'll say, look, here's what can be seen from the outside. We didn't do any hacking of your systems. And so this is what you need to start with. So once you do that,
Mhm.
then you get the building of trust, which then enables you to go in and work inside the company
Mhm.
and say do internal scans from the perspective of assuming that they were breached, and then actually look at the software that they're developing and do tests of that software to make sure that it's secure. So it's a gradual process starting from the outside in, typically.
Starting from the outside in. So it's really just it's really about. Can you actually dig a little bit deeper at that about what you mean
For sure. So
outside in?
let's say yes. So a lot of times people talk about, let's say, some vulnerability in a software tool that they were using, and that's what was creating a potential breach.
Sure.
Now, if it turns out that before I would bother with that, if I was a hacker, I look on the outside and say, okay, is your domain spoofable?
Mm.
Do you have your source code leaked on somewhere? Do you have usernames and passwords that are out there? So I could just see kind of like just what's out there without looking at your infrastructure at all. So
Mhm.
that's completely on the outside. So if you've left a key lying around, the equivalent of that, I'll just pick up the key and I'll just unlock your house. Right?
Yeah.
I don't need to know about what kind of lock you had or anything. I have the key to
Mm.
it. So that's the outside. So what we advise companies to do is, like, before you do a penetration test, make sure that you're locked down from an external vulnerability standpoint.
Mhm.
So clear up all these things that can be seen from the outside, all the things that are exposed. So that's the outside part. Then you say, all right, now the house is kind of locked up. You've got the fence around it. The gate is
Mhm.
secured. Now let me in the house, and let me pretend that I'm like an employee gone bad, rogue employee, or one of these North Korean employees that's apparently getting into companies these days. Now what could I do with my regular user credentials? So if I'm a regular user, can I actually elevate myself to an administrative user? And then as an
Mhm.
administrative user, can I then go and take over all the systems within the company? So the
Mhm.
outside part was already done. Now I'm
Yeah.
inside, and now I'm going to start to look there. And then beyond that, I'm going to go and
Yeah.
dig into the company's code. That's what I
It's
do.
like digging the layers of the onion.
That's right.
Oh, that was a great analogy there and an explanation. I appreciate you clarifying that,
For
Dave.
sure.
I have two more questions here for you.
Great.
One is a question that I've been asking everybody, almost everybody, 99% of people that come on the podcast. And then we'll hop into the final question. Sounds good? So
Perfect.
here it is. This first question, I've been asking everyone. So let's say you had a magic wand, David, and you
Yeah.
could just wave this amazing wand and it could just solve one thing in the company, one challenge, one obstacle,
Yes.
whatever it might be, that would allow you to hit your revenue goals or client acquisition goals, your targets for the growth of the organization. But only one thing. I
Yeah.
know that there's so many times, many things, many priorities. You solve this one thing, your goals happen.
Yeah.
What would you like to solve?
Well, first of all, I actually do have a magic wand, but I only use it with clients. So I don't
Okay.
have it. We can't turn it here internally. If I could turn it internally, I would focus most on um, reaching the strategic people that are run private equity firms and get them to focus on cybersecurity as a top priority.
Hmm. So finding the right
Getting the
decision
right
maker.
champions.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than decision makers, somebody who's a champion that's really going to have that's aligned with the vision that we have
Mhm.
about what could be done. Maybe
Yeah.
that didn't answer your question. You want to know what
Nope.
we could do inside the company?
No, that
Inside,
did answer my
yeah,
question. That did answer
very
my
good.
question because then you're able then you find the aligned perspective or um the aligned incentives to make sure that things go smoothly. Yeah.
That's right. And the
Yeah.
same vision. If you have somebody that has the same vision, so for us, we have a cybersecurity operating system for
Mhm.
private equity firms. If you find someone who thinks in those terms, find more of those. We have some of those, but if you find more of those, then that's really
Awesome.
makes it golden. Yeah.
Smooth sailing from there. Awesome. Yeah, no, that does answer my question. And then the final question that I have here for you, it's actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were.
Okay.
So here's the question. You ready for it?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. I like it. So here's the question. How has your relationship with uncertainty evolved over time, and how do you act when you feel uncertain?
When I was at Boston Consulting Group, we used to have a criterion on the candidate evaluation form, which was tolerance for ambiguity.
Mm.
And what makes a good consultant is somebody that can really be comfortable with. Well, that's like hard to say, this or that or the other. And so I always was had a good tolerance for ambiguity, and I'd say uncertainty is related to that. So it used to be uncertainty would make me maybe anxious and paralyze me from moving forward. And now uncertainty I see is a good thing because I can grab onto it and have a vision. It could just look a little bit further ahead than the typical person. And that uncertainty that's out there in general can actually translate into more decisive action on my part. So when I see uncertainty, it means the path isn't obvious. And if I can look ahead a bit, then I can get a jump on the competition. So I embrace uncertainty.
I like that. And then in a way, would you say that that actually turns into a fuel to drive the project or the process, the goal, or the whatever it might be that you might be doing even further or with more
Uh,
intention as well?
for me personally, yes. Now, the
Hmm.
part is that not everybody in the company looks at things the same way. So once
Hmm.
I see it, then I have to be able to explain why what looks like uncertainty is actually there's more certainty than you see, and here's the path that we're taking. So the first thing is to get the internal alignment, but it's in my own head pretty quickly.
And then second thing, translated over to the entire team.
That's right.
Awesome. I like that. David, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible talk. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about yourself or a little bit more about Atumcell as well?
Well, I just go to atumcell.com, ATUMCELL.com. You can check out the spoof checking tool that I mentioned. We also have some other ones, including one that's called Atumcell. You can go to seal.atumcell.com if you want to send a self-destructing note, which can be useful, and we could talk about on the next podcast.
Okay, awesome. Good stuff. Well, of course, leave everything down below here if you want to check those out. If you're still listening to this episode and you want to hear more conversations like this, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for your time, David.
It's my great pleasure.